Welcome to the Piston Fanatic. I'm your host, Dave Dalton, and I'm excited to share my passion and perspective of our Detroit Pistons as we go on this fantastic voyage together. I've been a diehard Piston fan since the days of Dave Bing and Bob Lanier. I've also been the varsity basketball coach of a very successful program in northern Michigan. I want to thank you all so much for joining me and listening to this podcast. Please subscribe and like. Well, fans, our Pistons lost a tough one tonight, 121 to 113 to the Orlando Magic. And some of the Orlando players, they are not a very skilled team. They are last in the NBA in scoring. They've lost 7 of their last 8 games, 5 in a row. They lost to Portland, and they only scored 79 points. Paolo Banchero was 1 for 14. But tonight they came out and they beat our Pistons, but it was an ugly game. It was so frustrating to watch. There was no joy in watching this game from the beginning. Before, even in the very beginning of the first quarter, Tobias comes jogging down the court, and Suggs throws his shoulder into Tobias. So Tobias retaliates, and they review it, and the Pistons had possession of the ball. They call a flagrant on Tobias. Orlando gets to shoot 2 free throws. We lose possession of the ball, and that's just the way it started out, and it just went downhill from there. So, I really think Franz Wagner was fantastic. Him and Banchero both scored 32. This was only Franz's second game back, and he scored 25 in the fourth quarter, which is tied for the most in a quarter by a player in the NBA this year. But he was unbelievable in the fourth quarter. He was 9 for 10. And 4 for 4 on threes, and he's not a great three-point shooter, but he was unbelievable. And Banchero, he was cheap. He was a thug tonight, and he got away with stuff. He just got away with stuff. He yelled and didn't get technicals for screaming right in Tobias's face. He yelled at Stu. He did I think end up getting one technical, but he was doing cheap shot stuff all night. He flopped and pulled down on Stu and got a foul on Stu. Wendell Carter Jr. or the third pushed Stu twice. Nothing. They didn't call anything for that. They called a foul for him, a loose ball foul on him, and they went to the corner down by the Orlando bench, and then Carter shoved Stu twice, and no consequences for that. Suggs, that was his first game back. So Orlando's been struggling. They've lost all those games in a row, like I said, but they had won some games. They played without Banchero, without Wagner, and this was Suggs' first game back. Like I said, it was Wagner's second game back. But Suggs is a dirty player, and he's tough. I would love Suggs on my team. I can say that. And Orlando played tough. They have to play that way. They're not an offensively gifted team. They're 30th in the NBA in shooting threes, attempts and makes percentage-wise. They're not a good shooting team. They shot free throws terrible, but luckily the refs they got to shoot 28 free throws, or they shot a lot more free throws than we did. And even though they were missing, and Banchero, he was 7 for 14. He missed like most of the ones at the beginning, but yeah. Anyway, it was just a very frustrating game to watch. But I will tell you, I was thrilled with our Pistons. They fought back. JB got ejected. We were down by 14 in the fourth quarter. We fought back. We cut it down to a 4-point game. And late in the game, Cade shot terrible in this game. He was like 3 for 15 or something in the first half. He was terrible, and he couldn't make a shot. And then he struggled some in the second half, but he came in the fourth quarter. He just willed our team. He ended up with 35 points, and but he was 13 for 31. He shot much better, especially in the fourth quarter. He just took the team on his back and really tried, fought his hard. Sometimes I think he tries too hard to do that, but he really was amazing what he did in the fourth quarter tonight. It was a tough road game, and I knew that they were going to come out smoking. Like I said, Banchero was 1 for 14 against Portland in the previous game, and so I knew he would be fired up. And they've been struggling to score. Like I said, they scored 79 points, and they scored it under 100 in their last 8 games, and then they scored 40 some on us in the fourth quarter today. They couldn't score for the first 5 minutes of the game. They hardly had any points. They had 4 points in the first 5 minutes of the game, but they came away with the win. It was not fun to watch. It was lots of free throws, tons of reviews, tons of technicals. but I just very disappointed that that they let Banchero and Suggs get away with some of the cheap stuff, and Carter and and other than that, Wagner, he was amazing. He drove it the ball to the basket. We didn't put up much resistance. We let him get all the way to the rim, and he's not a great 3-point shooter, but he was on fire in the fourth. He ended up 4 for 8 on threes for the game. But we're going to talk about a lot of things today. We got to talk about some trades. Our buddy James Edwards III, he proposed a trade to the Knicks. His team now, he switched from the Pistons, covering the Pistons, to the Knicks. His favorite player that he was in love with, he had this man crush on Stu. So what does he do? He proposes a trade for us to trade and get Zach LaVine, Precious Achiuwa from the Knicks, and LaVine from the Bulls. And the Bulls would get Hardaway, Fontecchio, and the Knicks would get Stu. And the Pistons, he just wants his team to get the Stu because he loves Stu. So on the surface, if we didn't care about our future, I like Achiuwa. He's not consistently great, but we would have to get another center in return, and he is kind of a little bit undersized, but he's good. LaVine has been playing at an all-star level. LaVine's been scoring like 30 a night on really good percentages, but it just did tickle me that he proposed a trade, and it was for him to go ahead and get Isaiah Stewart on his team again. So another trade proposed, C.J. McCollum. So again, this isn't by James Edwards, but another person proposed that we get C.J. McCollum, we trade Stu, Hardaway, and either Wendell Moore Jr. or Bobby Klitman, and some draft capital. So to get C.J. McCollum. Well, C.J. McCollum's a good NBA player, but he's 6'3", he's 33 years old, he makes $33 million this year, he'll make $30 million the following next year, and we would be giving up all that stuff, and he's just to fill in the spot that for Jaden Ivey, and he would be a good fill-in for Jaden Ivey if it was a long term, if he wasn't so expensive, and if he wasn't so old, and if he was going to be part of our future. But to do it for 1 year, and I'm for us trying to make the playoffs and do the best that we can. But I wouldn't trade Stu. We love Stu, and tonight he didn't have a great game in a lot of ways. He was out there fighting, but I wouldn't trade for C.J. McCollum. He's what we need. We need a second scorer. I understand that. I completely understand that. But again, C.J. McCollum he's averaging 22 points a game, and 3.6 rebounds, 3.8 assists, shooting 45% from the floor and 38% on threes. So he's kind of what we need. And then tonight, we lose Tobias. Banchero elbows him in the head and chin and half knocks him out. And so he only played 17 minutes. And so that hurt our depth and stuff. And so, we just struggled. Again, we can't, it's hard to, there's teams like New Orleans, the Pelicans, they've had just unbelievable rash of injuries, and even in the Magic, they're thugs. They dirty up the game. But they won games. They lost 7 out of 8. But before that, without Banchero, before he came back, they were winning games without Suggs and Wagner and Banchero. And how do they do that? They don't have like anybody on their team, but they're gritty. They're very gritty. So when I complain about them being thugs, because they did some thuggish thing, especially a few of their players, but they are tough and physical, and they're going to play you as hard as they can, and that's how they win. And so it's hard, And when we had our tough, we had the bad boys and the going to work team. Those guys were physical too. So, but it's always one of those things like everybody in the league hated Lambeer except Piston fans. So anyway, it's going to be interesting what happens at the trade deadline, and those are a couple of the trades that I saw proposed. We're going to find out about Cade. We'll find out if he makes the All-Star game on Thursday, and he, the starting guards for the Eastern Conference were Brunson and Mitchell. It's weird they do the starting team for the East and the West. But that's not how the games are going to be played. They're going to end up splitting the 24 All-Stars up into 3 teams of 8, and so there's going to be 15 starters, but that's not how I think they do this to try to, so guys can know who was the starters, and it's based on, it's 50%, the starters are voted in 50% by the fans, and 25% by the players, and 25% by the media. So LaMelo got like the most votes of the guards, but he got the 7th most votes by the media, and maybe 4th most by the fans. I have it written down somewhere, but it's just real interesting to see how all these guards, and in my opinion, Cade has as good or better stats than any of them. And yeah, I could go over that, but yeah, it was a tough loss. And Ausar, though, was awesome, and it's so exciting for me. I've been talking about him playing 30 minutes, and that's how much he should play all the time. But he was on like a minutes restriction, and so they gradually ramped him up. So tonight was the first night that he basically played 30 minutes, just under. And he was 6 for 8, 4 for 4 on the free throw line. His form looked good. 5 rebounds, 1 assist, 4 steals. So he did have 4 turnovers, which is too many, but he had 16 points. And so he was a real bright spot for us tonight in the game. And so it was good to see, and I think it's a sign of things to come. They interviewed him after the game, and I just love his approach to the game and his attitude and the way he talks about everything. I love the way our team fought back. I mean, you should have seen Cade after when we cut it to 4 with about 2 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, and Cade hit a 3, and then he made a tough drive, and he threw an alley-oop to Duran, and we just didn't give up. We didn't give up. We were down by, like I said, we were down by 14 when JB got ejected, and we cut it to 4. So that was, this team does have a lot of grit and a lot of toughness to them, and we'll see where we go from there. But Tobias, like I said, played only 17 minutes. He had 7 rebounds in 17 minutes, and we could have used him. He right off the bat though, he took the ball coast to coast, got a rebound, drove down, drove it right into people, and just lost the ball. He tried to drive it into a wall, and he's not very good with the ball, handling the ball. He's better off just giving it up. Duran had an okay game, 32 minutes, 5 for 9, not 80% like he's been shooting. He had 8 rebounds, 1 assist, 1 steal, 1 block, and he had 3 turnovers, so 10 points. Hardaway played 33 minutes, 3 for 8, 2 for 4 on threes, and he had 2 rebounds, 2 assists, a steal, and 13 points, and was -6. Cade, 38 minutes, 13 for 31, like I said, 2 for 7 only on threes, 7 for 7 from the line. He got hammered and knocked down all the time. He got tripped by Wendell Carter and fell on his elbow that's already tender, and it was really sore, and like his arm went numb. And they reviewed the play, and so during the timeout they were rubbing stuff on it and tried to some kind of icy thing to freeze it up, like, because he was in a lot of pain, and he was rubbing it. But after that he really took over and really took the ball to the basket and just said, I'm just going to ram it down your throat. And then he started making shots towards the end. But he had 5 rebounds, 11 assists, 2 steals, 5 turnovers. And 5 turnovers isn't what we want, but it's better than the 9 that he had. Except when he had 10 turnovers twice, we won, and we lost tonight. So Beasley played 30 minutes, 6 for 13, 4 for 8 on threes. He missed 2 free throws, 2 out of 3. He got fouled on a 3 by Davius Caldwell-Pope, but he missed 2 out of the 3 free throws. So that's surprising. Somebody that's as great a shooter as he is. But he had 18 points. Fontecchio didn't, played 17 minutes. He had a great game last game, but he was only 0 for 2 today and 3 rebounds. Stu, we all love him. He does great things, but he played only 16 minutes. He was 2 for 3, made some nice shots. His 2 shots were really cool, but he was 2 rebounds, or 5, excuse me. He had 5 rebounds, but he had 3 blocks, and in only 16 minutes. And he almost blocked another one that was called a foul, but it was pretty close to being a block. Holland came in, 15 minutes, 3 for 7, 2 for 3 on threes, which was cool. He made a step back tonight, so it was awesome. 5 for 8 on free throws, 4 rebounds, 1 assist, 1 steal, 13 points. So I would trend his minutes up unless he was struggling. Sasser only played 10 minutes, was 1 for 2. But yeah, the Pistons were 23 for 28 on free throws, and the Magic were 26 for 38. They missed a lot of free throws, but they shot 10 more free throws than we did. So what do we do now? We got to rest up and hope that Tobias is okay, and hope that Cade's elbow is okay. We got to turn around and we have to play in Cleveland on Monday, and the Cavs lost to Philly. It was unbelievable. You know, Philly's been just horrendous and lost like 10 in a row, and they beat the Cavs. But the Cavs are really good, the best team in the East by far, and so we got to turn around and play them, and then we got to turn around on Wednesday and play at the Pacers. So that's going to be tough, and then we get to play Dallas at home, and Dallas had another player get injured tonight too. I don't know. They lost Lively for a while, and they're another team that injuries are such a big part of a team's success, and so it's really hard. So we just got to overcome our injuries and shorthanded. But it will be fascinating to see what happens in the trade market. I don't think the Knicks are getting Stu James Edwards, even though you love him, just because he likes your shoes. But anyway, I joke about it, but I really enjoyed James Edwards III. I enjoyed his writing. I subscribed to The Athletic, and when he went over to the Knicks, I terminated my subscription. So that's how much I enjoyed everything that he did writing. But so the guys that have averaged 20 points, 6 rebounds, and 9 assists under the age of 25 in NBA history, Oscar Robertson, Luka, and Cade are the only 3. So, we'll see how we bounce back on Monday. And I love the gutsiness of our team, and that they didn't quit when it looked like they could quit. Like I said, they got down. Everything went wrong. Orlando couldn't miss a shot, especially Franz, and we still fought back, and we didn't cave in. You know, I don't know. Again, I just had a sick feeling in my stomach right from the beginning, watching a lot of the thugginess, or whatever you want to call it. But we'll see what happens. We bounce back. Again, I want to thank you all for listening and be the reason that someone feels like they're accepted. And go Pistons.